Hey everybody, welcome to Around the Twist, episode 250. It's June 1st, 2016, and I've got one fuzzy co-host at least this week. Phoebe wanted to join me. The one perk about recording upstairs. So she's over here. If you hear wheezing, heavy breathing, that's her. So, catch you up a little bit on this week, or this last week. I had thought I was going to basically only have 2 days off for crafting because of the work holiday schedule. I ended up getting canceled on Thursday, so I got an extra day thrown in there, or so I thought, and then got home from work on Friday, and hubby informed me that, surprise, the in-laws are coming. So my mother-in-law and father-in-law drove out from Nebraska and spent the weekend with us, so my crafting got very much diminished. Hopefully, excuse me, hopefully that means a quick show this week. I'm so sorry that the shows have dragged out to like 32, 36 minutes. I need to keep it succinct and simple and short because your guys' time is valuable too, so you're not getting any of my coffee. You poor thing. So grab your coffee, tea, beverage of choice, and here we go. Mine's carrot cake flavor this week from San Marco. So first things first, what I have on my needles does not have a whole lot of progress on it. So first up in my Tangerine Designs TARDIS yarn closet bag is the Very Merry Unbirthday birthday socks, which are a pair of socks from my friend Sarah. The pattern is the Zigzagular Socks by Prairie Girl Designs. It's a free pattern over on Ravelry, and my printed out copy is very much loved. I do have this on my iPad on the PDF Expert app as well, but I like to have the hard copy with me for this. I don't know why, I just do. I feel like I follow it better. The yarn I'm using is Mad as a March Hare. It is Blue Moon Fiber Arts in Socks That Rock Lightweight. So this is what it looks like all balled up. All those beautiful greens and grays and pinks. The sock itself is pretty much a stockinette sock except for this lovely cable that's actually will be mirrored on the second sock. So this is the left sock. The cable runs down the outside front of the leg and foot, and then the right socket will run down the outside edge of that. I'm sure if you want to wear them the other way so that it's running down the inner edge of your foot, you can do that too. I did finish the 4th repeat. Sarah was nice enough to let me know a couple weeks ago that she had 5 repeats of the pattern on the last pair of these that I gave to her. So I did half a repeat on these socks. I was halfway through the 4th repeat. So I managed to make the zigzag again, basically. Get it back to the start. I have one more full repeat to do, and then I can do the toe on this first sock and get started on the second one. And yeah, ending up using a US 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle. I'm using the 64 stitch Stop Chewing Your Paw size of the pattern. The pattern does come in, I believe it's 3 sizes. I think it's 50. Let me double check before I give you guys wrong information. I believe it does a 56, a 64, and a 72. Yes, 56, 64, or 72 stitches, which is nice to have. And it's actually a really nice offering in a free pattern to have all those different size options. So for me and the gauge that I do, and using Blue Moon Socks That Rock Lightweight, I know that in order to get a sock that fits my foot, fits Sarah's foot, fits my husband's foot, I have to do 64 stitches on a 1.5. Just because it's a plumper, rounder, fatter yarn, right? So that's all the progress I have on those. But well, I guess I don't have much progress on my husband's socks either. On the manly socks, the first sock is actually off the needles minus the heel. All I had left to do on it was Kitchener the toe. The sad thing is it took me until Saturday night before I did that. That's all I had to do. It took me 10 minutes. 10 minutes! if that. Probably less. I spend more time looking for which bag my knit kit was in so that I could find the needle to Kitchener the toe. But I did start the second sock. Yay! We were watching Deadpool. Not a child-friendly movie at all. Do not let your small children, or even, I wouldn't even let preteen teenagers watch it, because oh my gosh. But for adults, hilarious. But yeah, moving on, sorry. The Manly socks are a 72 stitch vanilla sock. It is out of Osterman Step, which is still available. I'm probably not in this colorway. I'm using color 24, which is the black, dark teal, and blue. It's also got that lovely gray stripe, and it's got little specklies throughout all of the colors. But I've got 4 rows of the ribbing. But talking about gauge, this is a skinnier yarn. It is a 75-25 wool nylon blend. I think it's 75-25. Gosh, you're right. Yep, 75-25 superwash, virgin wool, and nylon. It's a skinnier yarn, like I was saying, so I know, again, what works for me and my gauge might not work for everybody. Everyone's gauge is different. 72 stitches on a US 1, a 2.25 millimeter needle, works for me. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you, but you have to find what you need, what works for you, for your knitting, for the different yarns. I can't tell you how many pairs of socks. I think probably 3 or 4 whole pairs of socks I made. And my gauge has changed over the years. My first pair of socks was out of Knit Picks hand painted, and they were toe up, which I despised. They had a short row heel, which doesn't really fit my foot, and I didn't know anything about sock construction, so I didn't know when I should start the heel. I was just kind of guessing. So they were always a little bit too short, a little bit too tight across this part of your foot. And I really didn't wear them that much because they were shorter. The heel kept sliding under. And then someone introduced me to the top down with the heel flap and gusset, and that works for me. Or when I finally found the Afterthought heels, even those didn't work that well for me because it was almost on too few of stitches. So again, it was tight across the top of the foot. So once I found that Crystal Afterthought heel, that works. I haven't tried Fish Lips Kiss heel. I have the pattern. It's just every time I have a chance to use it, it's not a good time. Like, I don't have the time to sit down and dedicate to it to learn the technique. I'm going to use it someday. I just haven't had the opportunity yet. So there you go. My little sock gauge knitting lecture. Everyone has their own way. I've had people, Deb Barnhill, I'm looking at you, try to convince me to do toe ups, that they're better. I even took her toe up socks for the stubborn class at the second sock summit. No, the first sock summit. Never even made it through the first sock. Just, nope, not for me. Just doesn't work. Personal preference. You might love toe up socks, and that's fabulous. I'm not going to try to convert you to top down. So, this is the week of socks, I guess, because that's all I had time for, and as it was very little time at that. I'll admit, the second half of that repeat on Sarah's socks, yeah, I did that this morning, just so I'd have more than 4 rows of ribbing of something to show you. Yeah, that's how I cheat at podcasting. Here we go. Full disclosure. So we're going to move on to pokey things. The only thing I worked on was my Once Upon a Time sampler. And I feel like I didn't do a whole lot this week, but I actually, and this is going to look kind of funny because I moved the frame, I actually finished September. So Rapunzel is all done. I finished the second half of her face. I don't even remember what I had done last week. Let me look back. Oh gosh. I'm so unprepared. I'm sorry. Let's see. Last week I had finished her hair bow, her arms, and half of her face. So I finished her face. I did the birds. I can't remember if I had the hanging flower basket done, but that got finished. I hear small children not napping like they're supposed to. Did all the back stitching that needed to be done for the eyes for Rapunzel's mouth, and I got September done. So now I'm going to move on to October, which will go down over here underneath Thumbelina. And that, I believe, if I remember right, is Cinderella. So we'll have the pumpkin coach, and I think there's a little fairy godmother. But first I want to enclose the square. So I'm going to stitch the frame next. So this is the Once Upon a Time sampler from the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. And they just had a big sale that was announced after last week's episode and finished up yesterday. So I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to announce it to you guys. So yeah, that's it. That's everything I worked on this week. That teeny little bit of stitching and the sad little bit of knitting. I'm hopeful to have a little more time this week, but we'll see. So, moving on to Various and Sundry, the only upcoming event, that's the wrong thing, there we go, now we're on the right page. The only upcoming event I have is the Estes Park Wool Market that's running June 9th through 12th in Estes Park, Colorado, out at the fairgrounds. The classes are on the 9th and 10th at the high school, and then the actual wool market and the exhibition and the Leaping Llama, Llama Limbo, all that fun jazz happens the 11th and 12th, Saturday and Sunday. Myself and the family, kids and hubby in tow, will be there on Saturday for sure. So if you're going to be in the area, swing by. There is no entry fee to get into the wool market, but if you're going to park on the fairgrounds, the Boy Scouts do the parking as a fundraiser, and I think it's like $5 per vehicle, which is very reasonable. And if you need to leave and you're going to come back, just ask them for the password, and they'll give you the password to get back in. So since I didn't have a whole lot of knitting to talk about, let's pull up some questions from the Any Questions thread. If you want to ask me anything about projects, about whatever, within reason, head over to that thread and post something, and I'll get to it in a future episode. I'm just trying to go straight through the thread. So let's see. First one today is from Miyaka. She says, "Hello, Karen, love the podcast. Why did you choose the nursing profession? If you could pick a different career, what would it be? Lastly, what other podcasts do you enjoy watching or listening to?" Okay, why did I choose the nursing profession? I've always wanted to do something healthcare related. I mean, I remember growing up being 3 and my parents were both EMTs, so I wanted to be an EMT like Mommy and Daddy. So they took one of my blocks and glued a clothespin on it and drew a little speaker and the buttons on top and made me my own pager. And I wore that thing on my hip everywhere. I remember it was a bright orange wooden block with a clothespin. It changed. The field I wanted to be in changed over the years. I went through wanting to be a nurse, to being a vet, to being a doctor, back to a nurse, to I wanted to do mission nursing for a while. I kind of swung all over the healthcare spectrum. Started off as a biology major in college, and organic chemistry kicked my butt. I fully think it was the professor that was teaching it, honestly, because he had to leave for a couple of weeks during the semester, and the other professor that taught the class, the other section of the class, came in and taught ours as well, and I understood everything while she was there. He came back and went, "Okay, let's review," and it's like everything I had just learned that I understood just went to jello when he explained it, and it was gone. I'm like, how? So rather than have to retake that class, I switched my focus over to nursing, which is good because it's something I really enjoy. I enjoy taking care of people. Rehab nursing in particular, I just kind of stumbled into searching for a job. I just did like a blanket application to the company I worked for in Omaha, and the first floor that interviewed me was the physical rehabilitation unit. Never heard of it, loved it. I actually get to see people get well and go home and make these huge accomplishments, and it's why I've stuck with it it's actually 12 years now. I've been doing nursing for 12 years. Doesn't feel like it, but here I am. If I could pick a different career, what would it be? Gosh, I have no idea. Honestly, I'd probably still want to stay in healthcare, like that that position that I had interviewed for at my hospital a month and a half, a couple months ago, whatever it was. I think that would have been interesting and fun to do, and a good way to move ahead and have a different, like a change of career, but not really. Like still be in the healthcare field, but change within the healthcare field is probably what I would do. And lastly, what other podcasts do I enjoy watching or listening to? Honestly, I barely have time to knit myself, so I don't have a whole lot of time to sit down and do a whole lot. I'll occasionally catch Sadie from the Yarnivore vidcast. I'll catch her floss tube video. Usually while I'm uploading this, I'll sit down at the computer, make sure everything's going, and I'll have her running on a side screen. Not having a whole lot of time. In fact, I give up my chunk of crafting time on Wednesdays to record for you guys. I don't do really any crafting on Wednesdays because my only crafting time is when the kids are napping. So that's why progress has been kind of limited lately. And the audio podcast that I still listen to, I still follow the Knit More girls, Jasmine and Gigi. I follow them, and they are, I think I'm a week or two behind. I'm pretty much caught up on them. And then the Stuff You Missed in History Class podcast from HowStuffWorks.com is another one that I listen to. And those I mainly listen to when I'm in the car driving to and from work. It's about a 15-20 minute drive to get to the hospital that I work at. So those are my main ones. Honestly, I wish I had more time. I really, really do, because there's so many good shows out there, but those are the ones that I have stuck with over the years. Oh, what the heck, let's do one more. Urban Garden Girl posted saying, "Hi, I'm a fellow cross-stitcher knitter, although heavier on the cross-stitch than the knitting. I'd like to know, 1, how long have you been cross-stitching as opposed to knitting? Which did you start first? 2, where did you get your cross-stitch frame, the square one? And 3, what are your favorite cross-stitch gadgets? Thanks so much, Carrie." So, let's take this in chunks. How long have I been cross-stitching as opposed to knitting? Which did I start first? I started cross-stitching when I was, I think, about 8. I started doing a cross-stitch it was something both of my parents did. My dad did this huge cross-stitch. I mean, it's probably like 18 by 20. Once it was all matted and framed and everything, 18 by 20 of Canada geese landing on a lake. And I remember holding the floss as he was winding it onto bobbins when I was about 3. But actually stitching myself, I was probably 8 or so. The project was like the back end of a yellow school bus, and it was supposed to have some back stitching next to it that said something like "back to school" or something like that. Never finished the dumb thing. I hated how slow it was, but I'd pick it out and plug away at it every so often and make do one vertical row in a bit and then stop, put it away for 2 months. I don't even know where it's at. It might still be back at my parents' house in Iowa. Not really sure. So, then I didn't start knitting until I was in college. So definitely cross-stitch started first, but had a very long hiatus until I picked it back up just in the last 2-3 years. Knitting I have been at continuously for much, much longer. Actually 16? Yeah. No. 15 years. 15 years this spring. I've been continuously knitting. So, where did I get my cross-stitch frame? This one. Hobby Lobby. It's kind of the off-brand of the Q-Snap frame, and they come in different sizes. They come in a smaller, like 8 by 8. I think this is the 11 by 11. I think there's a 17-inch one as well. And the nice thing is, I'm not going to take this fully apart, but it's almost like PVC pipe. So you've got these little elbow pieces, and then the straight pieces, and then the bit that snaps, these that snap over the top that hold your project to the square. So if you get something like this that's 11 by 17 and you've got more than one, because it pops apart like PVC pipe does, you can mix and match. So I could have actually put together a 17-inch vertical pipe with an 11-inch wide with a 17-inch down and not have to keep moving the frame. But I like moving the frame, and this, honestly, in terms of if you're holding it up, supporting it with my wrist and all this fabric, my wrist gets fatigued from holding it, so a lot of time I'm bracing it against my body instead to do my stitching. So yeah, Hobby Lobby, Michaels, any of them have, they have the regular wooden hoops, and then they've also got these available. But you won't see them set up as the square. They'll be in a long skinny package that'll just look like white PVC pipe. I don't know how else to describe it to you. And what are my favorite cross-stitch gadgets? Well, like I showed you guys last week before, I love my knitting stitch holder as my bobbin holder for all my floss for my current project. Love it. And it's just that. I have just a fold-up pair of scissors. I always have to have some kind of scissors. And then I never really understood the point of a needle minder until I got one. And that's the little narwhal that people have asked about before that I got from Casey from Tangerine Designs at SSK last year. And now that I have one, oh my gosh, I love it, because I'm not always wondering where the heck did my needle go. It's kind of nice. And then too, when I'm stitching on it and I'm trimming threads, I'm not endangering my husband or the children, because my other way of keeping track of my needles was I would take and stab them into the upholstery of the couch arm, and sometimes I'd forget and leave them there, and hubby would go to put his hand down and get not the sharp end of the needle but the eye end of the needle. He'd just feel something pokey into his hand and wonder what he'd done. And yeah, those are my main things, just something to hold my bobbins of thread, the needle minder, and my Q-snap frame, and a pair of scissors, which don't even have to be great scissors, but I got a pair of really nice fancy embroidery scissors downstairs that stay down there because they're very sharp and I don't want the kids getting a hold of them. So that's it. That's everything I have. Again, if you're going to be at Estes Park on Saturday and you see us, please come up and say hi. I'll have buttons with me if you don't have one. Post in the Any Questions thread, and I'm still working on, I think I've heard back from all of the test knitters. I'll send out one more email about the progression shawl, and then I'll get that off to get it formatted and made all pretty, put together into pattern format, and I will let you guys know when the pattern releases. So I think that's everything. Until next week, happy knitting.